Welcome back to another episode of Bucks Latest presented by FanArch. As always, I'm your host, Dean Simon. And before we get into everything, please make sure to leave a like, leave a comment down below, and subscribe. We're still on the road to 2,000 subs, so if that's a journey you feel compelled to join, please consider pressing that big red subscribe button down below. And also turn on post notifications so you don't miss out on future Milwaukee Bucks updates. So, as the title says, first, welcome one and all in Buckslandia to the obligatory Giannis Antetokounmpo trade talk, kind of trade options and possibilities episode. This is actually a part of my contract with FanArch, not really. But it feels as though while this may not be the fever pitch of the whole Giannis trade saga, because I guess the fever pitch would actually be him going through with it, requesting the trade, and then getting on with the process of leaving Milwaukee. This is about as close as we've gotten throughout this whole thing, where we've received another Shams Charania update that Giannis's representation is talking with the Bucks front office, and they're both in communication about Giannis's future. So it feels as though it's time to put our GM hats on and kind of take a trip through some of the more pertinent Giannis Antetokounmpo trade rumors, kind of trade packages and things of that nature. And we will start with one that will be keeping, it's going to stay in kind of in the spotlight because that's just how Los Angeles operates in the sports world and especially in the NBA. We're talking about a Lakers trade package to pair Giannis Antetokounmpo, Luka Doncic, LeBron James to hopefully get one title in the present to give LeBron his fifth, and then give the Lakers a chance to compete for the next half decade at least. But this one for the Milwaukee Bucks, we're going to say that to make the money work, we'll also include guys like maybe a Gabe Vincent or a Maxi Kleba or a Jared Vanderbilt in this. Maybe it would have to be a Rui Hachimura type player. But Austin Reeves, who has broken out, and I dare not to venture into the superstar talks. I think in the last episode or one before that, I kind of talked about giving Austin Reeves a superstar label, and I don't really know if I'm there yet, but just tonight, of course, is the same night that LeBron James, the streak is broken of 10 plus points scored for nearly 1,300 straight games, an 18 season long streak, which is just amazing. Number one, but Austin Reeves in that game had 44 points, 10 assists, 5 or 6 boards. This is becoming an every night thing where Austin Reeves is putting up, him averaging 29, 7 and 6. This is a consistent thing, even when he's next to Luka Doncic or LeBron James in the lineup. This team has become partially his, and you could make the argument that if no trade were to occur, that it's Luka and Austin Reeves, that Austin Reeves is that big of a part of the Lakers' future. But in this case, Giannis Antetokounmpo would be let go for Reeves, for Dalton Connect, who, he's had a little bit worse of a sophomore season in his rookie year. He shot about 37% from three, and of course, his rookie year was just filled with a bunch of different crazy twists and turns, namely the failed Mark Williams trade blunder, and that kind of, you would imagine, took him out of a rhythm for the rest of the year. But he's still someone that you could get a lot of value out of. He's still pretty promising, and though he was an older rookie coming in, he is just very naturally gifted and polished, and that three-point shot is, maybe again it's looking a little bit less efficient this year, but I don't think his general jump shooting skill is going away anytime soon. But also in this deal you would get draft capital, but something that I would add with this is that of course the Lakers don't have all the draft capital in the world. You would probably have to include a third team in this deal that would be willing to give away draft capital in exchange for Giannis to win right now. And for that reason, that's probably why the Lakers, they wouldn't be able to really put together too great of a pitch, and why this is probably the least likely, or at least it's up there with the New York Knicks as being the least likely trade package to go through, unless Giannis actually shows a burning desire to actually play in New York. Then in that case, the Bucks would kind of be, the front office would be having their backs against the wall, and they'd want to not do a disservice to Giannis by refusing to send him where he'd want to go. So then that's the only reason why either a trade to the Knicks or a trade to the Lakers would go through, in my opinion. It really, really comes down to, what's Giannis Antetokounmpo's preferred destination? Do we really think that he's going to firmly say, I want to play for this organization, get me there? In that case, then you would have to look at a deal of this nature. But even still, Austin Reeves, who's going to be a first time All Star this year, this would not be the worst thing in the world because, if anything, as I've said with a couple of other trade packages to this point, if the Bucks aren't going to be good, then at least with a guy like Austin Reeves, they would be incredibly entertaining because Austin Reeves is an entertaining player. He's got a great handle, he's a great playmaker, fantastic scorer and shooter. And also his ability to draw fouls is up there with some of the best in the game right now, like kind of up there with the Shea Gilgis Alexanders and Lucas of the world. He really has taken a leap from that front. After having a fringe all-star year last year to now he is firmly, he might be an all-star starter. Maybe that's actually kind of crazy, but he will be in the conversation just because of the stats alone, the efficiency, and him again being able to do it with both Luca and LeBron in the lineup. But for the future of this Bucks franchise, maybe Austin Reeves might not be able to lead a winner, but that, it remains to be seen. He hasn't really been put in that situation just yet, though he kind of has been. When he was alone, he was dropping near 51-point triple doubles on the Sacramento Kings and single-handedly willing them to victory. So all remains to be seen, but of the trade options or potential packages that could be put together, this is probably the least likely one, along with the Carl Anthony Towns and other stuff like Tyler Kolek going to the Bucks for Giannis. That would also not really be too likely or towards the number one options for the Bucks if they can help it. Moving on to the next one, Giannis and Victor Wembanyama coming together to wreck the Western Conference even more and just make it even more of a bloodbath. This is the idea here, and in return, I only listed Vassell and Stefan Castle, and obviously the draft compensation as the only things here. Even though Stefan Castle, maybe the Spurs wouldn't be willing to give him up. Though it is Giannis at the end of the day, you got to consider all options, especially because they have Dylan Harper waiting right behind him, and still De'Aaron Fox in the mix. So Devin Vassell, Stephon Castle, maybe a Jeremy Sohan, maybe a Keldon Johnson, maybe a Harrison Barnes, though he is a pretty valuable veteran for them. He's a fantastic shooter and just he can create off the dribble when he needs to, but just the consummate professional and fantastic veteran in the rotation. But the San Antonio Spurs are a team like the Oklahoma City Thunder, the Detroit Pistons, teams that can overwhelm you in a trade negotiation with young talent, with the combination of young talent and compensation. And that's exactly what the Spurs would do in this situation. And this is where we start getting into trades that really do benefit the Bucks as an organization and prioritizes their future instead of prioritizes if Giannis will be happy or not with his destination, if he goes to the place that he wants to go, if he's satisfied with his future career in the NBA. This is a trade where you get a guy like Devin Vassell who has shown that he can average 20 points a game on pretty decent efficiency if you give him that room to operate and you give him more of an opportunity. Stephon Castle, he's really fantastic on both ends, but my one concern with him, even though this is something that's I would believe to be coachable at least to this degree, is his turnovers. Throughout the beginning portion of this season, he had, I think it was a 10 turnover game against the New Orleans Pelicans, a game still that the San Antonio Spurs somehow won. But also just he's just been piling up the turnovers, and whether it's he's getting passes intercepted, he's just losing the ball, he's driving down the lane and getting it poked out. The turnovers have become a massive issue with Stephon Castle. So even if he's up for sale from the San Antonio Spurs, of course you would say yes in this kind of scenario where you're trying to get the best package possible while also sending Giannis to a preferred destination. And Stephon Castle would be a perfect guy to get back, or at least kind of have thrown into consistent conversations if again if the Bucks can help it. But the San Antonio Spurs, again, that's another one that I think is also up there. And another team as well that I didn't mention in this episode, but also a team that I've mentioned before as a potential Giannis destination is the Detroit Pistons, because with guys like Asar Thompson and Jaden Ivey and Tobias Harris, among others like Ron Holland and Marcus Sasser and Dennis Jenkins, who's burst onto the scene. The Pistons have a lot of good young talent and draft compensation, or draft capital, I mean, that can, again, overwhelm the Milwaukee Bucks front office, a front office that is more desperate than ever to either land a mix of impact players and young guys that can help for the present and future, or a team that's, for lack of a better term, hell bent on getting more draft picks and giving themselves a better chance to prepare for the next half decade plus. So yeah, Spurs, Pistons, also teams that can overwhelm the Milwaukee Bucks on this front. And this last section here, you can call me crazy. You can slander me in the comments all you want, but this is a theory that I've kind of developed over the past day or so that concerns the Boston Celtics and their potential ability to trade for a guy like Giannis Antetokounmpo. The idea has been thrown out there not by really any major source as, a thing that could potentially happen, but just the proposal has been thrown around by a couple of different outlets. But the reason why I think now more than ever a Giannis Antetokounmpo trade to the Boston Celtics can happen is because the NBA could try and revive one of its greatest, or its greatest rivalry and one of the biggest rivalries in sports by having a Boston Celtics Los Angeles Lakers revival in terms of their rivalry in the NBA, with Giannis going to the Boston Celtics just in time for Jason Tatum to return from injury, and then if they still have Derek White on the roster after the trade, it would probably be a guy like Jalen Brown heading to the Bucks because I think their salaries basically match, and maybe just one other kind of smaller contract heading to Milwaukee along with draft picks. But in this scenario, maybe let's say we'll run with the idea of Jalen Brown going to Milwaukee in return. This theory, it's bigger than Giannis because I think it would be the NBA trying to capitalize on an opportunity. Why put Giannis on the same team with Luka on the Lakers or send him anywhere else when you could send him to the Celtics and again revive one of the league's biggest rivalries, one of sports' biggest rivalries, and they could just capitalize on this financially, and things would be lining up perfectly. It would potentially guarantee a couple of Lakers Celtics NBA Finals matchups this decade, or moving forward, and with the combination of NBC picking up the rights for NBA broadcasts again, and Amazon Prime doing their thing with their in their own right, they're reviving the broadcast element of NBA basketball games and bringing back a more storyline based, narrative based, kind of cinematic way of viewing the games. And at the same time, as a potential Giannis to the Celtics and Luka with the Lakers, then you have Lakers Celtics rivalry once again. This combined with the newfound storytelling ability of these networks, it would coincide perfectly, in my opinion, to make the games more entertaining than ever, or at least give fans more of a reason to be enticed to watch these games, in turn, spiking TV ratings. And I feel like this is just one way that, this kind of thing can happen. Maybe it's a little bit crazy. Maybe it's a conspiracy theory. Maybe I should bring out the tinfoil hat. But um, I really think that I have this weird feeling, this weird suspicion that something of this nature can happen. I'm not ruling this out. Many others will, probably most others will, but this is just my thing that I'm gonna have in the back of my mind, as the coming weeks move forward, and either Giannis is content with staying on with the Bucks and really staying here long term, or if he's going to finally give in after pump faking trade requests for the past better part of the past half decade, and he actually, wants to move on. But those are my couple of trade ideas for now. Of course, there are plenty other teams in the NBA that can also put together pretty compelling packages for Giannis, but these are just the few that I thought were probably the most pressing and the most pertinent at this current moment. So thank you very much for tuning into another episode of Bucks Latest presented by Fan Arch. As always, I've been your host, Dean Simon. Before you leave a like, leave a comment down below. Are all of these trade packages completely absurd to you? Do you think Giannis could actually be on the move and go to the Western Conference or go to a former or current Eastern Conference rival? Let me know in the comments down below. Subscribe, still on the road to 2,000 subs, so I would appreciate if you did that. Turn on post notifications as well so you don't miss future episodes, and I will see you guys in the next one. Go Bucks.